Hello, everyone. I am Shresi, and we are joined by Alex from, okay, wait, someone's in the waiting room. Sorry about that. All right, yeah, so we're joined by Alex, who from all the way from the UK. It's 10 p.m. for him, so really grateful for him, just like staying up and doing this for us. Yeah, and Alex is a DevOps engineer. I'll let you introduce yourself, Alex.
Yeah, sure. I'm a former DevOps engineer, and at the moment I work as senior site reliability engineer. And I have like almost 6 years of DevOps experience in various huge outsources company and some small product. I'm tightly working with clouds and deep system engineering. So, yep, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I'm curious, how do you, so I've been doing more research on like Docker and pipelines and CI, CD, that kind of stuff. And I haven't quite figured out how the testing aspect of it works. I can have like set up a script that tests everything. But is it like in a development environment, is it the developer's responsibility to write the code and write the tests and then push that, and then it would run those tests against their code? Or what's the development line of that kind of thing?
It's actually really depends on company and processes which you have installed in your work environment. In general, tests are written by developers or testers or hired specifically to do automation testing or code testing. That really depends. Usually DevOps engineers are not working on tests and usually just launch them.
Okay, cool.
In some ways inside of the pipeline.
Okay, if that's all the questions we have, I'm gonna dive into this list of questions that we made for you. Alex, what would you say was your greatest achievement, or is your greatest achievement so far?
Actually, pretty much everything. It's relates to a work and some sort of complicated system, which I designed and maintained. But to be honest, the most, not the greatest, but the interesting achievements, it's to automate whatever tools which are not purposed for automation, and you need to find very strange and different ways how to automate everything. Because like if you're working on truly inside of development and agile processes, you have to automate like very unusual things, like, for example, written approvals for releases or something, and it's very weird to automate, but still it's interesting. And some tools as well are definitely not purposed to be automated, but still it's part of your job.
Yeah, I love that. The next question would be, what would be your favorite piece of media / technology that you have used?
If we're speaking about media, it's probably YouTube, because it's full of as well as learning content as well and entertainment.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
But if we're speaking about technologies, everything, I don't know, I cannot highlight some specific areas. Now I'm very curious about the infrastructure or Internet of Things, because they become more and more real, even that they are not truly secured.
Yeah,
but it's very interesting area of development. And
enough stories of people breaking into Samsung fridges.
Yeah, okay. That leads me to my next question. What is your favorite hobby / pastime besides when you're not working? How do you like to pass your time?
I would say most of my time is spent with family, but if we're speaking about technologies and etc., maybe some game development, maybe some coding, maybe some dive deep into the systems, because you can learn Linux forever and never get to know about everything.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting areas.
Yeah, with you. Yeah. Now, could you describe what you exactly do? Because you mentioned that you've done DevOps and you've done so many other things. So just like in general, what do you exactly do?
DevOps engineering, well, DevOps engineer, it's incorrect understanding and incorrect naming actually, but everyone use it as a buzzword. Usually DevOps engineers or ops engineers or platform engineers, they're responsible for intermediate area between the development and platform support, because developers can do some operations and operations can do some development, but no one can do like exactly intermediate. But you have to. So if you are DevOps engineer, you understand how development works. You're able to develop some tools, fix some code, and you truly understand how operations work. And often it's really deep understanding of systems, of networks, often I would say hardware work understanding, because everything, all knowledges in system engineering sphere help you to understand and diagnose problems as fast as possible, which are part of your job.
Love that. Okay, that leads to our next question, which is, what's your experience in DevOps been so far and how you got into it in the first place?
Journey to DevOps, from my perspective, fairly obvious for someone who started it more than 5 years ago. Almost everyone started it or from network engineer or from system administration. I came from both, and then switched to development side of software engineering, and then I try to tie them together and find for myself the DevOps, and then start growing more and more in DevOps area. Sometime as a team lead, even without rich experience, sometime as a SRE, but in general, yeah, everyone become DevOps from some really low-level system engineering specialties, because you want to develop something in progress, and it leads you to this intermediate area where you interact in both with developers, with operation team, with product owners, whoever need your help.
Yeah.
Cool. And just to segue off that question, since you mentioned that you got into DevOps through system administration and networking, how did you go from DevOps to what you're doing right now, which I think you mentioned is a site reliability engineer? How did that transfer work?
Site reliability engineering is fairly tight connected to DevOps, and it's actually utilizes DevOps practices in its work process. And in general, site reliability engineering is meaning that you less on development side and much more on operations, but you need to have extremely deep understanding on system engineering. I mean, yeah, like deeply tweaking Linux, any clouds which you use, you need to understand how everything works all together, because the reliability often means that you need to understand exactly each part. So you need to understand how your application work, which you support, how it deploys, how it launch on system. If you, for example, run it in Docker, you need to deep understand how Docker works, what potential vulnerabilities it might have. So yeah, I would say that SRE is truly relates to operations side and far lesser for development, maybe for some tools which you use because you develop tools for yourself, and less relates to internal processes of the company. So it's like dedicated team who taking responsibilities of platform reliability. However, depending on size of the company, you can do everything, like even some IT support stuff. So yeah.
Very cool. So what are, you mentioned that you build your own tools, correct? And
Yeah.
what kind of like tools does one need to build if they're going to, be doing something related to DevOps or site reliability engineering in that respect?
Almost all tools which I developed during my DevOps journey or SRE, some SRE parts of the career is relates to automating something, and you don't need to do something like in routine. For example, like a couple of weeks ago, I released on GitHub tool which just push comments to GitHub from CLI, and it's useful like when you run in tests in your CI pipeline, you need to post output somewhere, for example, to GitHub pull request or to Jira issue, and not all tools has this ability of interaction. So I just write my own. And some other examples, I don't know, system which backups Jenkins configurations and restore it, because you need often to do a migration. Some of Kubernetes operators, which performs as well routines actions, but in very templated way. So yeah, in general, it relates to automation. Just don't repeat actions while you're doing. If you do it manually more than one time, probably do something wrong.
For sure, yeah. Why waste time or money doing stuff that you can just have a program do for you? So is there a like a particular language that you write these programs in? Because I know, like, of course, you have Python, which is like great for data science, or Java, which is always used in Android or Kotlin or whatever. So is there a standard language for DevOps tools, or just whatever is up your alley?
Actually, whatever are you happy to write tools, and whatever you can write fast. For personally, for myself, if it's like some rapid automation, it's Python, because there are plenty of pre-built libraries which can do almost everything, and you need just build it as a Lego, from the interfaces or whatever. But Python is fairly slow if we're speaking about huge processing, and it's interpreted language. And if you need to build some tool which is always in use and it has to be a small binary file, I would say it's Golang. because as well it has a huge community. It's simpler than C or C++. So you can write on Golang faster. And yeah, the result binary is really small, like maximum maybe 10 megabytes for complicated tools with complicated logic. So in general, use whatever you're comfortable with, because the job of DevOps engineer to make process faster. If you will spend like a few weeks on learning new language, it doesn't make any sense. So just if you know JavaScript, use JavaScript. If you know Python, use Python. If you know, I don't know, Kotlin, which you can assemble into something what works in very light environment, use Kotlin. If you're someone who likes functionality, use Scala or Haskell or whatever. So it doesn't really matter. In general, in companies, you might have some guidelines, like the DevOps department always write tools in Golang. So you have to learn it. But it's very rare, for example, in big consultancy companies, because there are so much people that no one cares on what language you will write your own tools.
Cool. So bottom line is there's not really a standard. It's whatever works for you and what works for the company, it works for the project. Cool. Very cool. So just what are some, like I know probably for most of your companies you had to sign NDAs, so you can't really talk about that, but like what are some interesting software projects that you've worked on yourself? This is more of, I guess, a general software engineering question rather than DevOps related specifically. Maybe some interesting tools that you've made that you're particularly proud of, or just anything really that you think is of note, of particular note. It's probably quite a few options.
Yeah. Well, what I can mention, that was a very big client, which has like more than 10,000 developers across the world. And we have to build a CI platform for all of them, because like old Jenkins was very, very old and slow, and sand thrown from his head. Yeah, the task was to build a platform, and we become with individual Jenkinses per team. And it was a huge challenge to build up the platform on top of Kubernetes, which can manage all the Jenkinses, which can manage access for support team for each Jenkins, the secure way on updating all versions, plugins, installing, keeping it all consistent and possible to manage. Like if you have like 10,000 developers, at least like 10 developers per team, 1,000 teams, 1,000 Jenkinses, it's extremely huge. So that was a great challenge.
Yeah, I could only imagine having to build something that scales that well. That's really cool. So let's say I am someone who maybe I've messed with agile methodologies and I really want to, let's say, improve my DevOps abilities. What are some potential projects I could do that on my own time I can go ahead and improve my skill in that field?
The DevOps practices, the exactly DevOps practices, probably just read some books about why the hell DevOps at all exists. If we're speaking about technical skills, just try to understand the majority of areas which is used in DevOps. So it's like CI tools for building applications and, for example, running tests. The artifact storages for storing results of CI builds, tools which allow you to roll out, and strategies how you can roll out applications. The area of continuous monitoring on how you can monitor applications, why it crashes, what stack traces it gets you, what metrics you can take. And after you determining all those areas, just learn one tool from each of them, because all of them are quite similar. They have their own history, like Jenkins built for Java, TeamCity built for .NET, or whatever, and they better works for like sort of native target purposes, but they're extremely similar. So difference in configuration and how comfortable you dealing with each of them. So just learn one tool from each area and you will be comfortable to switch from one another in any moment of your career.
Cool. Would you recommend any like particular books? Because you mentioned earlier that if you want to learn about DevOps, like as a philosophy, I guess, what are some good resources for people that want to learn more?
Just a second, I'm Googling because I don't know how it's named. For example, DevOps Handbook by Jim Kim. It's like a fiction book exactly about business perspective of the DevOps. It's very easy to read, and it explains you why DevOps exists, why it's part of agile methodologies, why everyone trying to implement it. So yeah, that's a great book.
Cool. I'll definitely keep note of that. Thank you. So as you mentioned earlier, DevOps engineer is a bit of like a buzzword now. Why do you think in recent years specifically that's become such a buzzword and such a popular, I guess, field to look into?
First, the DevOps become very popular because it first reduces time to react from business perspective. So you can implement many features extremely quickly and react to market in very small amount of time. And the second, the DevOps reduce the risk because you deliver smaller pieces of software which are relatively easy to roll back in case of something goes wrong. Like if you remember someday in game development, games delivers on DVD discs or CD disc, and once you burn the gold master disk, that's it.
Yep.
You can make a patch, but it should go on another disk, and people need to purchase it as well. So you don't have chance on mistake. Maybe for game industry it was better time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, nowadays, I mean, of course, with online gaming, you can literally, there's a bug up, you can fix it immediately and just push it. I got a direct result of some solid DevOps practices behind the scenes, making sure that that's made possible.
Yeah. And the DevOps become so much popular because actually you can ask one single person to do everything. Because DevOps can fix code. So DevOps engineer can fix code, can fix production, can find in logs something, can fix databases, tweak them, tweak Linux kernels, talk with business owners, explain how everything works. So it's people in company who have almost the widest understanding on what's happening because they monitoring all the pieces. And because of skill sets and the similarity of tools in DevOps, you can not to hire people with specific technical stack often. So you have wider choice of specialists. So maybe because of that, it's becomes such a hyped profession.
Sure. And I imagine it's a really good value proposition for the company because, as you said, it's, like there's one person now instead of, I guess, a group to some extent.
So sort of, but it should be more than one person.
Fair.
because one DevOps, it's not enough.
Fair enough.
From my experience, it should be at least 5 people, at least. Better.
Yeah. I mean, with huge systems,
more better.
Yeah. Of course,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. So, hackathon related, not DevOps related. I want to take my project. Let's say I've made something in, I don't know, express.js, and I want to push it and deploy it. What, in your opinion, is the best deployment platform for smaller projects that you would make in a hackathon?
For most of MVP, which hackers want to present, it fully suits any serverless platform which you can find on the internet. The simplest possible, I guess, is Heroku, because you need just 2-3 commands to deploy. It will determine automatically your entry point and or whatever it requires to start, like necessary libraries. It will download everything automatically, create an endpoint in the internet, and provide you working set of application. If you want to have a bit more customization, I would recommend to go to Microsoft Azure Cloud unexpectedly, because from first look, it looks expensive. But Azure Functions has the similar concept. You just deploy code, determine entry point, and you have endpoint in the internet, which you can access. Obviously, as it's a huge cloud with huge functionality, you need to configure network permissions, access sets, and etc. etc. So it might be not suitable for hackers in such short time to understand how everything works together. However, it's more reliable, I would say, but still in MVP, it's not that necessary. I don't want to criticize Amazon, because I worked with it all my career journey, actually. But if you want to spend as much money as possible, you need to use Amazon.
AWS for sure.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of like AWS as far as big companies are concerned? Because I know like a lot of the internet runs on AWS. What makes it so appealing for them?
Reliability, number of certifications which they handle, because even in the US, even government organization able to host there, because they created the government approved data centers. And fairly easy to start system for beginners, but there are a lot of hidden features, costs, and etc. So it's a great cloud when you personally not pay for it.
For sure. What's the best alternative to AWS as far as like big deployment platforms go, in your opinion?
From my experience, it's Azure because
Azure.
that's the only alternative which I have commercial experience with. As well, that Google Cloud Platform or project, Cloud Project, GCP, it's the same. Actually, all of three, it's the same concept made by different companies. So the same as I told about the DevOps tools, it doesn't matter with what cloud you work in, because you can easily switch. Like if you experience with AWS, you can switch to, for example, GCP in 2 weeks, just by reading documentation and doing the real things.
Cool, very cool. I think that concludes our questions. I just had one last thing for you. What is your IDE of choice out of sheer curiosity? If you have one.
One, no. 4, yes.
4, okay. What are those for?
VS Code,
Of course.
for wider range of tasks,
Mhm.
because like you can develop almost anything in VS Code,
Mhm.
but for more programming specific, software development specific tasks, I would prefer PyCharm for Python and Golang for Go. And if you need to do something really quickly in console, it's Vim.
Of course, classic. Great.
But you need to know how to quit it.
Yeah, I know that that's a bit of a meme that people don't know how to get out of Vim.
There is a repository with 1,000 options how to quit Vim, and it's really 1,000 options.
1,000 ways to quit out of Vim. That's impressive. Wow. Why did they make so many? I don't know. So many ways to exit. Who knows?
It's like destroying your computer with hammer.
That works too.
It might help.
Fair enough. Cool. All right. Well, I think that concludes it. I'm just checking the chat on our stream to make sure we don't have any more questions, and I don't think we do. So unless you have any last minute things for us, we thank you very much for having this little Q&A. We're going to post this on YouTube and share it to the rest of the audience who couldn't make it because they're busy working on their projects. So thank you so much, Alex. Yeah. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.